In a time long ago, when knights rode horses and kings ruled from towering castles, Europe was not the peaceful and orderly place it might seem in storybooks. Instead, it was a world where the most shocking and scandalous deeds were often committed by those who were supposed to be the most virtuous and respected. The story of how morals declined in Europe as the Middle Ages faded away is a tale filled with lust, power, and betrayal. It's a story that involves kings, queens, and even popes, and it starts in a place you might least expect, the city of Rome, the very heart of Christendom. Imagine a world where the most powerful men in the church, the ones who were supposed to be the closest to God, were instead some of the biggest sinners. This was the reality in the early 16th century, a time when Europe was going through a great change. The old ways of the Middle Ages were giving way to new ideas, and with these changes came a decline in moral standards. People were more interested in pleasure and wealth than in following the rules set by the church. Even the most respected families, like the Borgias and the della Rovers, were known for their wild parties and scandalous behavior. The Borgias, a family from Spain, became particularly notorious. They rose to power in Rome, and their most famous member, Rodrigo Borgia, became Pope Alexander VI. But before he took the papal throne, he was already known for his extravagant lifestyle and many affairs. He even had several children out of wedlock, which was a huge scandal at the time. His parties were legendary, filled with beautiful women and powerful men, where the rules of marriage and morality were often ignored. But the Borgias were not alone in their misbehavior. The della Rover family, which included two future popes, Sixtus IV and Julius II, was also known for its lavish and often scandalous parties. These families set a dangerous example, showing that even those at the top of society could get away with breaking the rules. This led to a general decline in respect for authority and moral standards, as people began to think that if the most powerful could act this way, then they could too. The decline in morals wasn't just limited to Rome. It spread across Europe, affecting countries like France, England, and even Spain and Italy, which were still largely Catholic. In France, for example, the Age of Rabelais saw a celebration of all things pleasurable, and in England, the Tudor court was known for its aristocratic promiscuity. The idea of marriage as a sacred bond was often ignored, and many people, including those in high society, engaged in relationships outside of marriage. One of the main reasons for this moral decline was the growth of wealth. As Europe became more prosperous, people had more time and resources to indulge in pleasures. But the religious revolution, known as the Reformation, also played a role. When Martin Luther and other reformers challenged the authority of the Catholic Church, it led to a period of confusion and turmoil. People began to question the Church's teachings, and many felt that they no longer needed to follow its strict moral rules. This led to a time when nobody cares about either heaven or hell, as one historian put it. However, this period of moral laxity didn't last forever. Eventually, conservative forces on both sides, Catholic and Protestant, began to push back. They worked to restore moral discipline and encourage people to live more virtuous lives. For example, in some Protestant communities, the reforms became so strict that some people actually missed the more relaxed, pleasurable times of the past. But the early 16th century was a time of great change and upheaval. It was a time when the old ways were being challenged and new ideas were emerging. It was a time when the most powerful people in society, including popes and kings, were often the ones leading the way in breaking the rules. This period of moral decline is a reminder that even in the most religious and supposedly virtuous societies, human nature can lead to surprising and sometimes shocking outcomes. So, the next time you think about the past as a time of perfect behavior and strict rules, remember the story of the Borgias and the della Rovers. It shows that even the most respected figures in history can have surprising and scandalous sides to their stories. This period of European history is a fascinating look into the human side of power and the consequences of moral decline.